We're going to talk a lot about the police and the decisions police make, but I just want everyone on here to understand, like, this is society. Cops are human. So any judgment we make against the police, the NYPD, how the overall of the NYPD acted during the time of COVID, understand that these are some of the better people amongst society. Understand that, these are the people that actually go out into the fray. So when we're basically shitting on the cops, because at some point we're going to shit on the cops, it is what it is. Understand that it's a take on society. And I agree with Eric totally. Most cops are great people. Most cops, 99.9% of cops are guys you want to live next door to. They're guys and girls you want to live next door to, you want to go shopping with. They're not going to bother you. They don't want nothing to do with you. They just go about their own, take care of their family, feed their family. So, and it's a microcosm of society. They're a microcosm of society, and they're the better part of society. So I just want everyone to understand that, like, as we go forward, like, so like, I think that we're actually in a much worse time now than we were pre-COVID. Let's go a little deeper into Tim Poole.
I think a lot of them strongly disagree with that.
I think a lot of them live in Staten Island and hate what the city is, but having, lived in New York for 5 years and routinely interacted with NYPD, I think they're mostly default lib, and default lib is, to be fair, not commie, but when the communists get power and say, go do communist things, they go, okay, boss. Like when they painted Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower, and then 26 officers were like, you got it, boss. It's an illegal theft of public funds without city council approval, and they're painting a public message on a street, which violates federal law, but we're going to enforce it anyway. Right. And then NYPD started arresting a bunch of people. Or how about when in New York during COVID, when they shut down churches and the cops were like, what was it? No more First Amendment? All right, we'll arrest people at the church. That doesn't sound like salt of the earth. That sounds like commie.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, he makes a great point over there, But he talks about the default lib. I mean, the party's not touching on is the fact that a lot of cops live outside the city, and they're not default lib, but they still, a lot of them still went along with it, So it's I think the issue goes much further than, say, being a liberal or being a conservative, I think the question is even though I agree with you, most cops are good people. That's a fact. But the question is how far can they be pushed before they do bad things from authoritative orders? This entire incident, again, it has been nothing more than a massive Milgram experiment. Okay, and in a lot of ways, the Eric Adams administration is one Milgram experiment, because, like, as we mentioned before, one of their favorite quotes is, "You're either eating at the table or you're on the menu." So I think it's more than just surface level politics of liberal and conservatism. It's willingness to go along with authoritative orders that kind of conflict with your conscience. And as I said before, I think society's psyche was whittled down in the last couple of years, and making it easier for you to make good cops, good people, do bad things.
I think these are great points, but in my opinion, while Pat Donahue had mentioned earlier that most of the cops that are getting on right now probably are left-leaning ideology, even with that, I think that most cops, I would say, not all, I think it's pretty tough to say anything is all or everything. Most cops do not police with a political mindset. And that's what we've been saying, right? The police department should be apolitical. Unfortunately, we're seeing something completely different from this upper echelon, this upper echelon has attached themselves in this administration with so much political engineering. It's something we've never seen before. But I think for the most part, most cops do not police with political ideology in their mind. They police in fear of losing a paycheck. I have to follow orders because I need this paycheck. I have to follow orders so that I get the overtime that's coming up. I have to follow orders so that I get the good detail. I have to follow orders so that I'm in a good position. I have a good career. So I think for the most part, it is an environment where we're following orders, we're doing what we're told. And that's a great question, Marlon, is how far cops will go before they actually speak out. And then I heard something, and it's been grumbling. I've heard through different things, and I've been trying to find it. And I can't find it on paper. So don't quote me on this. I heard that only 2% of a group actually speak out when there are atrocities. So think about that. And potentially 30,000 cops, if there is something that appears to be unlawful or immoral, how many are going to speak out? And not many. And that's why I say they're kind of forced to be communists, that they're in a position that to carry out draconian laws because they are forced to continue to get a paycheck, forced to get a detail. That's why the quota system, and there is, if anyone thinks there's no quotas, I think there are. If we want to call them personal growth, there are quotas. And a quota system, it kind of falls into communism because if you don't, if you're not writing summonses, then there's going to be hell to pay. If you're not making arrests, if you're not following those orders, so you're put in a position to follow a number. But at what point, if they said tomorrow, hey, we're going to go arrest anyone with red shirts in a restaurant, they can't be there, you can't wear a red shirt, would the cops carry out that law? And unfortunately, I think the answer is yes. Not because they're bad people, but because they put in a position where they have to feed their family, continue. How many cops would stand up and say, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this? It would be pretty tough. They would need a that support would have to come from the unions. And unfortunately, we don't see it. And I don't think the unions would stand up for them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never even thought about that, dude. Like, do cops police? I mean, really, like you're saying politically, but like I'm hearing like, do cops police based upon how they feel morally, spiritually, politically? Like, do they police based upon their ethos? And most cops, I would agree with you, do not. They police based upon factors of personal gain, right? Am I going to keep my detail? Am I going to keep my days off? Am I going to stay in the good graces of my CO? Am I going to be able to rise in my career? Totally. Yeah, I never even thought about that, dude. That's scary when you break it like that, because I think, to be fair, like, I don't think that the younger generation is more left. I think that men and masculinity have been so demonized in society that we've actually weakened what it is to be a man in this world. We've actually demonized people. I mean, I again, like, I go back to my upbringing and I look around like the guys that I grew up around and that were much older than me. And yeah, I'll say, maybe they weren't as smart, they weren't as civilized, they weren't as friendly as me. But if you told that guy he didn't believe in God, you would see a man reaction from that, where you would get punched in your face and they would flip out. And now, is that the correct response in society? At times, I think that it may be. At times, I think that it may be, and I think it's written even into our nation's founding, right? It's literally written into our nation's founding that if any time this government becomes whatever, we have the right to abolish, right? And so there are times when no has to mean no. And when I think about it, it's like, well, all right, yeah. A lot of good people in the world, a lot of good cops. How many people have the fortitude to say no and mean no? Like, where's the line? and that's kind of what Marlon was like alluding to. Where's the line in the policing where you'll say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to enforce that. That is not a law. No, I'm not going to denounce my faith. No, I'm not going to denounce how I feel. I'm not going to do something that's going to make my children worse or my neighborhood worse or society as a whole worse. And when I look at like, oh, is it because we're more left today? Is it because men have less testosterone today? No, I think it's because a lot of people don't have the ability to say no in any situation whatsoever. Never mind when their morals are on the line, never mind in a right situation. They're afraid. The word no has been like, oh, you can't say no. If you say no, you're out of this tribe. If you say no, John, that's it. The PD's coming against you. You can't. You will do as you are told. We told you you're going to take this, and you're going to take it. And so like, just to go on COVID for a minute, like there were like literally people like, John, at some point you're going to have to take it. And I was like, I don't think you understand. Like I had the conversation with my older sister, and she's like, John, at some point you're going to have to give in. And I was like, I don't think you understand what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that there is no way under threat or penalty of anything that I'm ever going to do this unless I am strapped down and someone shoves it into my body. I don't think whatever that looks like, whatever the future looks like for me is fine, but I'm never going to do that because I cannot believe what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in society. And I don't think that there are a lot of people that are willing to go that far on things when it comes to their morality.
Yeah. I say that's the byproduct of a feminized world. And like you said, because masculinity has been so has been so drawn out of society lately. I mean, when I was growing up, like there was, I think the 90s was like the last vestige of rebellion, the younger kids, because I think today these younger kids don't know anything about rebellion. I mean, think of it. We see their idea of rebellion is protesting for some liberal cause, on a Friday night. And to me, I'm like you're protesting because for some big government cause. That to me is a little odd, because it seems to me like because of that helicopter parenting and that trophy generation, these kids have just never had that spirit of rebellion in them that other generations did. I mean, so I think because of that, and because of like how they've removed masculinity out of other aspects of society, it's a lot more feminized. And in fact, I'll say this, most of the women in my life, like, told me to get the vax, and I'm willing to bet that there's a large percentage of men who got the vax because of the women in their lives too, by the way.
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.